Couldn't ask for a better start to the round of 16. 6 games back to back here on the Academy channel, and we are just getting into the draft for this game number 3. This absolute banger that's about to take place in front of us, Rebel, as Winthrop on the blue side yet again. It seems like blue side is the king for some reason. Feels like red side everywhere else, but blue side here. And so far, Highlanders on the red side looking to get something going.
Hey, quell that talk of red side being bad or blue side being good. Yeah, how about we talk about the fact that we've had like 2 35+ minute games in a row that came down to like team fights that like just been won by the Highlanders, which is really important to remember.
All that was covered under the banger umbrella, Rebel. Come on.
Yeah. Under the banger
word banger
umbrella.
at anything, and it just covers everything. It's fine. I got the visual representation and everything.
Banger word.
Imagination.
Yes.
But we do have similar bands, typical at least in the first couple, but then we had the Volley Bear band, the Varus band for Winthrop, so they do not want to deal with those couple. The Morgana Rumble band comes away from the Highlanders, and you got to, but the fact is the Shen is also going to stick in that band pool. Tried and true, first pick Jinx.
That it is. Interesting that the Varus was taken off. I assume that's because Thresh is getting through. Sorry about that. I assume it's because Thresh is getting through and they don't want to give over Varus Thresh, which is obviously the combination they went with in the previous game and is pretty good into Jinx. But now removing maybe goes from that champion that he's done so well on over the last few games has been really incredible. But already the clap back of the Kog'Maw. We saw AP Kog'Maw today and I would love it, but obviously this could just be ending up the Kog'Maw Lulu combination, as that's been excruciatingly strong, and we've seen that in a handful of games as well, and it's worked some pretty solid dividends in its own right. So big fan of the Kog'Maw here.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. We're looking in the chat. You know, Emery is there to give us some guidance on how to deal with Winthrop. She wanted the spicy pick. She wanted the new stuff. She wanted to whip out what really needs to be done for Winthrop to win, and it's Highlanders who take the first couple picks and throw everything out for a loop. They get that Lulu Kog'Maw. I do not like the response here as from Winthrop. They're going for the second index onto the Nocturne. Not something that I thought was that great going into game number 2, but here we are, game number 3 coming out again. The Leona pair with that Jinx is still going to be that strong combo down there, but I do feel like the Highlanders have a little bit more to give here.
You can do it, Mazel. You can say it. I say it about Syndra all the time. What are you going to say about the Nocturne?
I'm not negative, okay, Rebel?
You know you want to hit him with a Nocturne bad, but obviously I'm gonna say I'm okay with the Nocturne pick in this one alongside Leona, because all of a sudden you have a Victor and you have a Kog'Maw playing into a ridiculous amount of dive potential coming out here from the side of Winthrop, which is a terrifying prospect that now all of a sudden, even in the right circumstances, even with like flash and defensive tools, it's still difficult to peel off these multiple divers from your immobile backline. Victor's a little bit better about it than the likes of the Kog'Maw, and of course the Lulu is going to have her hands full on that backline, trying to make sure that everybody is staying away from the butterfly.
Yeah, trying to at least. I like how you went with the butterfly.
There's so many different ones.
That's the one I use.
Wait, no, no, you don't use butterfly. It's if you're playing AD, you play Pugmaw because it's the obvious choice because it's doggo. But if you're playing AP, you have to play Arcanist because that only makes sense. Like if I have to explain that to somebody, then I'm sorry, but
that's
like, you
an
don't
expensive
understand.
skin.
It's a great skin.
I don't. What are you on about right now?
I got that one for free.
We're here with the B-Boss skin?
We got a lot of bands come in. We should cover those really quickly.
No, what are you talking? We're talking about Kog'Maw.
True.
No, it's, in all actuality, though, very strong focus into the jungle band pool, at least for Winthrop, as they take away the Graves that was played so well last game from Damlost Gaming. And the Kindred actually gets the final ban for Winthrop, as the Set and Lucian with the bans away by the Highlanders. They pick up a Highlander himself. I don't know if he's technically a Highlander. He's a Viking, as Olaf comes through for them.
My spider sense is tingling, telling me that this Olaf is about to be a top laner and not anything else. Also, I will unfortunately have to root against Winthrop if they pick this Syndra pick because it is a bad champion. That is really unfortunate. Yes! Sorry, Winthrop. Sorry. Syndra bad. I'm going to say it. It's just going to come out. It's not the play. I'm sorry. You have Doxa on your team. He's got amazing champion pool. He's got a number of different things that you can pull out. This isn't like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like it fits in team fights. It's pretty good into like, especially if you're trying to burst down targets really quickly. So if you want the reaction time necessary necessary from Lulu, you're trying to test that. Or Olaf, if Olaf's running in and you throw the Ragnarok on, you got to burst out that Olaf really quickly. And I also do like the Aatrox, but again, I'm in a rough place where like I don't feel like that Syndra is going to work as well as they want it to, and it's certainly not the champion I would want to put Doxa on into Asian Knight, given the way the first 2 laning phases went.
Hey, at least they listened to the desk. There's no Silas for Asian Knight this time around, so that's good. The Aatrox I do really like for hybrids. I think it would be a really strong pick. If they do take this Cho'Gath into it, though, it could be really interesting. I was going to say it'd be a little weird. The Alistar actually comes in, which means we could be seeing a Lulu top here going up against that Aatrox.
Pretty interesting to see. This is like, I remember when I first started watching League of Legends, not even casting, like the very first thing I started doing was watching professional, and I remember seeing Lulu be the most infuriating laner of all time to play against because of just how ridiculous that she was in terms of her damage and everything else that came out. And this is a pain now where now all of a sudden Gohan, who's been playing like this like crazy aggressive stuff, is pulling Lulu top into Aatrox, which is a really good champion for hybrids, in an attempt to make this play happen. It feels like you've now given a target over for Frost Force, unfortunately, and it does, of course, now separate also the likes of the Lulu Kog'Maw, which is usually what you're pairing them for. However, Alistar is really good for disengaging these divers off of Kog'Maw. They felt it necessary to give him some of that disengage to allow him to auto-attack forward and give maybe Ghost some space. So all of a sudden, you got a pretty solid combination. Not to mention, if you're winning this game and you want to play a bit more of like a forward fighting composition, this works a lot better than something like a Lulu where you'd have to draft engage for top lane. You simply don't want to do that. So now you get the Alistar in the bot lane instead.
Yeah, so we get some very interesting looks for the lanes themselves, but as well as like the matchups themselves, because I do feel like the Olaf wins out on the Nocturne trading there. I feel like you do have the Ragnarok. Once you hit level 6, you can have that early skirmishing where you are trying to get ahead on the Nocturne. We've said that all game last game, where are you seeing the use of the Nocturne? It is in the early game. It's trying to get those early advantages for your team. You have some good scaling on the side of Winthrop, but I do worry for that skirmishing, that middle game where you are seeing a lot of strengths come through for the Highlanders.
Perhaps this is one of the first times ever that I'm going to be able to see skill shots from a Syndra really consistently hit, because if you slam the lights off in the face of the Highlanders, then all of a sudden you can't see where like Aatrox is coming from, where Leona's coming from. You have decent ways to engage from a pretty decent distance. So even if Nocturne's not even pressing the ultimate key to go in on top of the Kog'Maw or the Victor, or whoever else you want to go on to, it's a pretty useful tool for setting up your decently ranged team, which is a little bit further back than the majority of teams are normally set up, in order to fight into them. So there is at least that to consider. Not to mention Highlanders, they've gone once again into this super hard 5-on-5 composition. Like if you keep this split into lanes, this is not going to go super well for the side of the Highlanders. They're really playing into taking these team fights as often as possible.
You might be against the Syndrome.
I am always against
all
the
good
Syndrome.
and dandy, whatever. I'm against the Lulu. I don't like Lulu.
You don't like Lulu?
We'll see how it goes out of the... No. Why does Lulu get to play top lane? Just tell me why, Riot. Tell me. I love it. I love it. I love to see the differences of play coming out from both these teams. That's what I making a joke about it, but in all actuality, like that's what I love to see, is the versatility from this team, and especially the Highlanders, right? We've talked all day long about how Winthrop are this top team. They're so strong and collegiate, but the Highlanders making it very tough for Winthrop to hold that flame, to hold that standard, right? You're seeing these games go back and forth so long, so drug out, and especially the fights going either way, really, and it's all about that mechanical execution, and Highlanders have risen to the task.
Off the back of what is effectively just 5-on-5 team fighting in a very superior fashion, I said this was really the one real threat they brought to the majority of the series that they play, and they're showing it in spades here up against the side of Winthrop, who's one of the best teams, obviously #1 out of the South and whatnot, with a lot of players that are recognizable to a good number of people, and it's come back time and time again. This is one where their team fight actually feels excruciatingly contingent on either being engaged into or engaging onto is a little bit harder, I think, because there's no way to get Kog'Maw and Victor really deep into the enemy team, and playing front to back's fine because there's not many like really big tanks, but I think it's a lot better if you're getting engaged into than otherwise, which means if you want that, you have to have control of the river ahead of time and a bunch of pressure, which again leads to Highlanders, can you put on early pressure, which they haven't really been able to do super well over the course of these two games or in any other series, which is why I guess the Olaf was taken, and you're also shutting out the Aatrox with the Lulu pick, because there's no other reason to draft Lulu into a laning phase other than just to shut down the opposite laner.
It's the full flex there. I do wonder how that Aatrox is going to affect the rest of the map though, because I do feel like that's where you get a lot of the strength from Aatrox, either in the laning phase where you can bully out, you can get an advantage up there and kind of transition that elsewhere, or those TP plays, the flanks, things like that we've seen so prevalent, at least in this series so far, can be really big for the Aatrox, not as much so for the Lulu. You're not necessarily going for those flanks as a Lulu. You're not looking for those wraparound plays. You're looking for more those steady, consistent team fights.
You're disrespecting the best named ability in the name, in the game, which is Glitter Lance. I love Glitter Lance. It's my favorite ability name in the entire. Whenever I play by play, I hope I get Lulu because I get to say Glitter Lance again and again, and it's my favorite thing to say. But you're right when it comes to it. Again, that's more indicative of what we're talking about when it comes to 5-on-5, where there's so many more creative ways I think that Winthrop have to actually approach fights, especially because Saskia has so much dive potential to buy space for Jinx to walk forward in fights, and not a bunch of response. Olaf is the one real fear that Saskia is going to have to deal with, so some early pressure I think is going to be helpful if Olaf gets off to a really early foot to be able to put some pressure down into Jinx and team fights. But otherwise, ideally you want to put Lulu with the rest of the team, as they always do, and set around neutral objectives, things like that, because again, like you said, Lulu's not super valuable when it comes to flanking, is useful in TPs because there's a lot of really good things that Lulu can do in terms of TP, but really is just there to make sure that Aatrox doesn't have the laning phase like Kingdom that you really want to, and you can't pick a tank which is more engaged or counter engaged that you could go, because Aatrox can bully those out. So instead opts for this very strange pick, something that I wouldn't say it screams Gohan's champion pool, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen and from some of the games I've said, but obviously it could be a Chad champion in the top lane where you're just bullying down people with picks and Glitter Lance and all the fun named abilities.
The whimsies, it's gonna be great. Definitely looking for the flex potential in the top lane, but I have to say, like, I think the composition here for the side of the Highlanders is really strong as a whole. I'm still looking at the execution here for Winthrop. They have to be able to pull the trigger on this Nocturne that we saw was very good, at least in the early couple fights, having some good paranoias, but in the later game it didn't really work out that way. But here it is, put up or shut up moment for both of these teams. 1-1 with the series. The winner goes on to the round of 8, goes on to face the University at Buffalo. We'll see who takes this dub as we hit the rift.
It's another game where it feels like Frost Forest has a good amount of the pressure early, even though it's not until level 6. And Olaf's intention is to try to aggress very quickly into this team. It's another level 1 coming out. Does Saskia follow his top lane?
Oh, no,
he didn't learn his lesson. No.
Okay, the axe goes a little bit wide.
Oh, he caught it.
Still hits it. Still has the angle.
We're not worried. Yeah, we're not worried. Okay. Right there. That's the reason. Okay. If you don't spot that out, if you're not in the river, you don't see that coming. If it weren't for the axe missing in that time rush to start with, then Saskia could have been in some real trouble, unfortunately. We're not going to worry about that. That's why you step into the river. That's why you do that. Everybody watching, please learn the lesson. Step into the river when you're covering there.
So I almost choked a little bit because I was laughing at the fact that it's actually the butterfly Kog'Maw skin.
Oh, it is.
I just almost died. It's fine.
No.
Just because it's absolutely hilarious.
The prediction from 100 miles out by Rebel Hacks.
With absolutely no context. Why not? Just throw it in there.
I'm simply too good for these teams. I'm reading their minds 1,000 times at a time.
I need to get in Professor Rebel Fox's class. I need to get on level. But we are getting the opposite side stars from both junglers here, so maybe a little bit of difference in focus from either side early on. We are talking and putting a spotlight on both these junglers, especially to get either team going.
Notice, if you will, also that Winthrop was able to throw a ward into the red buff. This is off the back of the fact that Saskia was able to run out of that tri-brush, and no additional invade came out for more information to come through, which means that right now, to Highlanders, it's blind to see where Frost Forest is, but they almost have an idea of exactly where this Olaf is going to be, given the timer and given the red buff that hasn't been taken quite yet, so there's no surprise, really, as to where the Olaf is going to end up. He's clearing bot, he's heading to top. Hopefully they can catch him. Hopefully that ward was light enough to see when the red is actually going to be started, but if they don't see him on that ward until that time, they know that it's going to come through. Right there, it actually just expired.
Yeah.
As Doc's throwing some hands right now with Asian Knight in the mid lane.
He's definitely trying to keep the pressure up in mid lane, just to be available if needed. Get that priority
another ward
to go help out Frost Force. Yeah, another early ward will actually spot out Dom Lost Game. So they do know where the Olaf is. Doing really good at keeping track of the enemy jungler.
Extremely nice job here from the combination of Winthrop, where that first ward was there. They knew that red buff wasn't being taken, so they knew he wasn't on top side for the most part. And then that second ward is there to track it and continue where he's at, so they know when he's done with the Raptors, when he'll be done with the red, and likely when he'll be done with Krugs and on to the next few camps. And this frees up Frost Force to continue on this full clearing path. We're likely not going to end up on that Scuttle Crab as fast. Gohan, notice, actually shoved really quickly and throws in this ward to make sure you track when the respawn timers are up from the side of Frost Forest. And what you'll see is Gromp is going to spawn first, so they'll know where Frost Forest was and roughly what the timer was. And you can see that his bot lane is stepping into River after the push to make sure that they can snag that Scuttle Crab, which is even more information leading to knowing where Frost Forest is going to be at any given moment.
Yeah, and you're already getting the roams coming out. You're getting a lot of the movement coming out from Winthrop. They're able to get the Scuttle. Obviously, the opposite side focuses coming through here. Doxa in mid lane doesn't have a lot of mana left available to him, and might be getting a visit here. Actually, it's going to be Dom Lost Gaming who actually opts into the top side invade. Not going to find anything up there, though, so just trying to put some wardings down, see when the reset comes out for Frost Forest, but still looking to get involved early is this Olaf.
I think the trading from Victor is actually pretty decent into Syndra, which is another, like I'm not trying to bash Syndra even more than I already do because I don't like the champion, but like I feel like if you had counterpick, which you absolutely did in this particular case, Doxa opted for Syndra for a reason, which feels less for the laning phase and a lot more for the team fighting, which is you're leaning against like what I would imagine Doxa should be doing, which is playing for the lane, but it does lean into the strengths that have been coming out from the side of Highlanders, and even the bullying is still there. You're able to land a couple of abilities. Nice gravity well actually from Asian Knight, preventing Doxa. If he steps up for any more additional damage, absolutely takes it, but he's just tanking Q after Q after the tier comes out, means Doxa's able to stay in this lane for an excruciating amount of time. And
Doxa just doesn't quit. He just keeps fighting, keeps trying to aggress onto Asian Knight and keep that pressure up as much as possible. Now, there's the fight on bot lane, though. You're getting the 2v2. Look who's getting low. Hot Ruffle's the one that's forced to flash away, but the last shot comes in, and the Ignite was the one that got it. Sir Kenji gets first blood.
Maybe Ghost kind of stopped autoing there for a second. I was curious if maybe Sir Kenji could be traded off, especially with the passive where like Saskia could end up getting traded at the end of it. If there's enough TP. That's Lulu too.
Gohan coming in to try to make the early play. It does have Ghost following up. Now the TP is going to come in from behind on Hybrids, and Gohan's completely caught out here. Going to have to try to burn the flash to go over. Look at Hybrids, though. He's waiting over the wall, and Gohan has nowhere to go but dead, as that's all 5 members on the bot side for Winthrop.
Nowhere to go but dead is something that I will need to remember for the future. But you're right, yeah. Like Winthrop, they're here in a very aggressive stance. They're able to find a nice engage. Yes, Alistar has the Q, but gets stuck on the trap line, which was nice placement from Saskia to be able to trade that. Again, maybe Ghost doesn't quite have all the damage necessary because of all the burst, that extra burst that was added by Leona there to end up fighting back. Heal wasn't even burnt. But the more important thing, Gohan teleports to try to make something back. You end up getting a TP from Hybrids to match, so all of a sudden there's no CS advantage being generated in top lane, and all it does is end up trading back one additional kill, which is the Lulu that went down to Nocturne, as well as snagging that ultimate away. This is Winthrop grabbing a lot of the early game. This is my expectation for this team, is to abuse early on into this game, not let advantages go over, and for the side of the Highlanders to wait for a bit more of the scaling to come through before team fighting comes out. This is the 3rd game in a row where we've seen roughly this exact thing happen from the side of Winthrop, and they've still kind of struggled to convert this early game advantage into something tangible in the mid game.
I do feel like Winthrop have changed a little bit in this 3rd game, right? I think there's been a little bit of development and maybe self-reflection coming through this series, because you're seeing a lot more clean calls, a lot more clean, direction around the map. The vision game has been on point. They've been able to spot out Dom Lost Gaming constantly. They've been able to move around a lot, and I feel like this is finally like Winthrop feeling comfortable and feeling good about this game itself, because they've gotten this early lead, and now they've just got to figure out how to use it.
That they do, especially because it's on the Nocturne. I think that's a really big thing. Like you said, if Nocturne doesn't get going early, it starts to feel like a champion that doesn't accomplish the task that it was meant to. And with the early advantage, obviously it will. And so, especially when you're able to find these lanes, especially things like Victor or like Kog'Maw, or things that are immobile that you can attack pretty consistently. Even Lulu on the top side is something you can put some aggression into if you find the right combination of CC to throw into her. There's a good amount of lanes to actually go attacking, especially because you've got CC in all 3 of your lanes to work. But this is another engagement on bot
Ruffles
side.
takes so much damage. Where's the tankiness that you're usually begging to have as the Alistar? It's not there, as the Mega Death Rocket's going to fry up some beef patty today. Hot Ruffles goes down. They do almost find maybe Ghost 2 on the backside of it. Domlos Gaming is here, has the angle. Saskio staying forward, might have stayed to his death as well. Tries to go on to Ghost, doesn't get it. Domlos Gaming gets the kill. First one on the board for the Highlanders.
Yeah, trade of kills right here, able to get the Cogmaw sprung out of lane, gets another kill for Olaf, which is a nice way to start things off here in terms of aggression. Notice, though, Frost Force on the opposite side of the map, there might be a dive potential coming through onto top lane into the Lulu, and notice also that Hot Ruffles is up here to defend against that, yeah.
Immediately makes the call to come up this way, stop any potential invade from Frost Forest, although Hot Ruffles, I was going to say, taking a lot of damage on bot side. Needs to be really
way health
too.
advantage here, though.
Look at the health! Hot Ruffles is dead. That's 3 deaths on the Alistar already. Frost Force in some trouble. Blast Cone over the wall saves the day. And that is such an unfortunate beginning to Hot Ruffles' third game here. Hybrids might get caught on the other side of it, though. Dox is the one that gets caught, though. Go on, gets the kill. Sir Kinji and Hybrid flash over the wall to make sure that they're safe. But Highlanders able to capitalize on an overstep from Winthrop.
Yeah, and a couple of flashes also burnt just to get them over that wall, like you said, and that's a number of resources burnt here where Winthrop gets caught with their hand in the proverbial cookie jar at the end of that play. I will say the one thing, if Kog'Maw had picked up that kill instead of Lulu, I would have fallen in love with that situation because I think that would have been completely winning. As right here, felt like Hot Ruffles was just a little bit ahead of time. I know he was trying to stop this red buff take, but the important thing here I think was just to play a little bit more patient, wait for his reinforcements to show up. Also, right there, one of the very few times I've ever seen the interaction that red buff has additional effects when you throw it with Syndra W. I think people forget about that, but it did exist right there, so we actually got to see it firsthand very rarely. Hybrids was in a kind of a rough position, ends up getting brought down, get transformed, everything else, tries to fight his way out. Doxa gets caught on the back end of this one. Again, the Lulu was able to snag the kill. I would have loved it if it was instead of Kog'Maw, but they end up flashing over this wall because they're just way too deep trying to find this 4-on-4. Another existence of a 4-on-4, 5-on-5 fight for the Highlanders that they always go back to where they find themselves the advantage.
Yeah, they're so good at executing on those fights and especially around those objectives. Even though that wasn't over an objective, it was near the objective, and hey, it fits into the same category. As Gohan actually finds the better end of the trade on Hybrids on that one. Almost got all in there, though, by Hybrids, but still doing a really good job of keeping the lane state where they want it. And it's still going to be, the one objective taken already. No Rift Herald started by either team. We do have another Dragon in about 40 seconds, but priority is all in the favor of Winthrop.
Is sitting on a 2,000 gold lead is pretty nice at this point in the game. It's another massive CS advantage in the mid lane as well, where Doxa was also able to pull off a kill. You're seeing a CS advantages pretty much across the board here, except in the jungle position. For this reason, I would love to see Domlos get really involved. We talked about him being a pretty important piece to this team and needing to make some of the early advantages happen. You see right here, there's
Power Unleashed on top of the Scatter the Weak. Doxa's too good. He saves it until it's the right moment for Frost Force to come in, gets the little stun back from the Scatter of the Week, and secures the kill. What good play coming out from Winthrop early on in this third game.
Hard to dodge what you can't see. Like I said, you throw on that, you turn off the lights really quickly, all of a sudden you can't dodge the orbs as they come in. Asian Knight has no flash and no cleanse, nothing like that to be able to stop the CC, and Frost Force just pulls away with a very easy kill. It is going to be a trade for the Dragon, which does slow down the game slightly.
Oh,
I've stopped
every time.
Nope. I've stopped giving any care to it. If it happens, I can't keep losing my mind every time a Jinx Rocket almost steals a dragon. I'm gonna lose my mind every single game. So I've decided to not react to it anymore. That's what's gonna happen.
All right, Rebel's done. He's not reacting anymore. He's done. He's no more reactions for Rebel.
Nope.
But seriously, at least the Highlanders are able to find something on the map. They get that dragon, tie up the dragon score. They do lose that Rift Herald, and I'm very worried at where that gold is going to be, put into for Winthrop, because I do feel like you've already got the 2 kills on the Nocturne. You're feeling really good for Frost Forest, and now you've got a couple lanes that you really can buff up with that extra gold.
Yes, you can. You have a couple of places to throw that down. I think, importantly, unlocking hybrids to the rest of the map could mean some pretty easy dominance. The same with Doxa, where you've got this massive range advantage. I think preferably you get Doxa out of lane as fast as possible, only because Victor in a side lane suddenly gets really dangerous to do just because Nocturne exists with the 2-kill advantage and the Stride Breaker already completed. And Doxa access to the map means that you have a lot of range and CC to work with to be able to abuse some of the additional members. So if you hit Lulu Lulu with something, Lulu's really squishy, especially with the Shirelias instead of anything else. No boots even completed. Same with the likes of like the Kog'Maw, who instead of going for defensive boots goes for the Berserker Greaves and has no defenses against the likes of whatever it is that Dox is bringing, especially with Sork Shoes completed at this point in the game. So to me, you put some aggression into mid lane, you flood that area, you make sure the Victor gets shut down a little bit, force him into side lanes pretty quickly, and you unlock Doxa to the rest of the map. And that's how Winthrop is able to start kind of picking this team apart.
They are looking for a fight here. Paranoia goes straight in onto Asian Knight. They have the fight on the backside. Sasuke flashes away, gets flashed on himself. Domlos Gaming is down. That's one of your main pieces for the fight here as a double kill goes over to Sasuke. Give another one to Doxa, and it's 8-2 in favor of Winthrop.
When CC hits this Olaf has Ragnarok and is ready to roll. But you lose those defenses, and it means when the penetration is there, when the ultimate is there from Doxa on this Syndra pick, that's the reason that this gets selected. Because as soon as that Ragnarok goes on, immediately it becomes near impossible to try to run into a team without just getting blown up. Okay, I don't know how that happened. Oh, Sir Kenji's on the wrong side of this.
Yeah,
I think he's just to fight his way out of this one.
He's got to get a TP from Doxa here to save his life. What can happen? There's nobody here to save Ghost, though. Unfortunately, Doxa's just going to chase him down. What auto attack will do it on top of it? So that's going to be a nice turnaround. Sasuke goes down to the 1v1, but it will be a response kill given over to Doxa. Frost Force almost goes down top, almost gets taken out, uses Stride Breaker to get away.
Really close to giving up a kill for no reason, although it wouldn't have made the end of the world. The important thing about this whole set of plays that has happened right here is, of course, this fight going through, which was humongous. I want you to watch Olaf again. He presses Ragnarok to get on top of Sasuke, but you lose your resources to the ultimates from both Doxa and Sasuke. Yeah, everything gets dropped on top of him, and at that point, you're just going to get completely burnt out. Ghost somehow found a kill here, but the important thing, again, we talked about mid lane being the one you need to break out. That's exactly what they do. Rift Herald goes in and is able to take the tower away to make sure Syndra can access. This is the rest of what's happening, which is like Sasuke moves up too quickly. The wave wasn't quite in position for Sir Kenji to go, so he has to run through tower and ends up just being a kill going over to Kog'Maw.
I just want to say it's a sad, sad day for the bot side tower. Although we're gonna focus on this fight a little bit more while Doxa just cleans up. Maybe goes down here. One shot, one auto will do it. And when we go back to game, you'll see Hot Ruffles was unable to save the bot lane tower. We saw it in the picture-in-picture. Unfortunately, not able to clear the waves fast enough. They lose their outer tower. So it will be a second tower secured for Winthrop. And a very strong lead right now for themselves. Just circling under that 7K.
This is the expectation that we had for Winthrop from game number one, right? Like, Highlanders are good, and they're good at team fighting. But Winthrop is an amazing team who has very strong lanes to play to, and we haven't seen that really get applied super heavily until this game right here and right now, where Frost first got early advantage, Doxa got early advantage off the back of some pressure and some fights that had come through. Sasuke or Kenji are capable of making their own plays, and yes, top lane hasn't really been much. Hybrids is currently sitting 30 CS, 35 CS ahead of Gohan, and Gohan has had no access to the rest of the map because he's just constantly getting shoved in. I'm not sure exactly what the intention behind this Lulu pick was. I know they're still waiting to try to superpower this Kog'Maw come late game, but I don't know that they get there at all. And I've said that in a couple of previous games because they end up throwing a bit, but this feels a lot different because all of a sudden Winthrop's got dive for you, especially strong dive. You've got really good long range CC and damage out of the Syndra, who's dramatically ahead in this game, and Jinx is currently still at least on par, if not ahead of where the Kog'Maw's at. So the team fighting should still be in favor of Winthrop as well. It's going to take, like you said, in other games, it's felt like some execution was there, but in this game, it's going to require some of the best execution that they've shown us in this entire tournament from the side of Highlanders to really turn this game on its head.
Yeah, I think the thing that worries me the most is, like, it's not just the kills, it's not just the map advantages, the objectives, those kinds of things. It's the fact that they're also winning the CS department. Usually you want one thing going for you if you're hoping for a comeback, right? And you've got CS differentials across the board pretty much, and pretty heavy ones as well. So I need to see kind of pick up from Highlander in this mid game, try to get maybe Ghost a lot of this farm, try to get as much gold as possible onto this Kog'Maw. But the thing is I have to appreciate Frost Force here, willing to pick up the Nocturne for the second time in a row, not having the greatest showing in the last game, but coming up big in the early parts of the game in this one.
Once they saw the Kog'Maw, I think they knew exactly what needed to happen. They saw the Kog'Maw Lulu, they're like, okay, we got to put some pressure onto him, let's throw this in, and it's exactly what they needed. This is exactly what the doctor ordered for all intents and purposes. So there's that to consider. I'm keeping eyes across the map as we're seeing Dragons.
Okay, he waited a moment. It just goes in as that's going to be a lot of damage on a Frost Force from the tower. But Doxa goes in, gets the flash kill with the Scatter of the Week and the damage on top of it.
Now, I'm going to make this excruciatingly apparent to everybody out there. This is not what Syndra normally looks like. She's got Ludens and completed Magi's. Normally, she's bad. It's not fair. Doxa's not fair. Okay? Normally, she's bad. Doxa's ahead.
Get out of here.
Don't let this fool you, okay? This is a bad champion. They just happen to be putting a bunch of resources into it.
Thank you, observers.
Well, okay?
Thank you. Let's give the spotlight over to Doxa on the Syndra. The Syndra is the big deal right now, the biggest deal. No, but seriously, Doxa's been piloting it so well. I appreciate you so much, observers. But it's really been impressive that the entire, like, it's still 0-0-0 on hybrids in the top lane, but it's everybody else who's been so good at coming together. The team play for Winthrop in this third game is so impeccable.
It looks a lot better. They've been putting their pieces together a lot more commonly, I think, in this one than normal. And the biggest thing, of course, obviously, is like Doxa, who's currently on 3 items. They gave him the first tower. They gave him, like, all the turret plates in the first tower. They gave him a couple of ganks to be able to get him loose. And they were now unleashed him on the map, where in these side lanes, you have a really rough go of it. And no one has built magic resist yet. I think I'm looking at that right. It's just the one no magic mantle for Hot Ruffles. Not another person has built any, which means that this Syndra, who has a ridiculous amount of AP and additional penetration off the back of the completed Magi's and the completed Seraphs with Ludens, that's like 15% like penetration or something, and Sork Shoes is effectively doing true damage to the seat, which is just absolutely unacceptable. You need magic resist in order to live. I know Kog'Maw might have to get away without any, but you're seeing to see why. Gohan, if you tank one ability, you just die.
Literally one. The Mega Death Rocket came across, a Paranoia came across, like, they used everything. They sent 3 ultis up there, and at least they get the kill for it.
They didn't need to do any of that. Like, I don't know why Saskia was throwing an ultimate at that target, because like literally one ability was all that was necessary to bring down Gohan, because Gohan has barely any built health and no built magic resist. So you're talking at this point, it's going to be crazy. That is surely on your screen right now that we're getting a big zoom into to make sure it collapses into tower. Not a lot of defense, and also I would be terrified to try to counter siege up against Doxa's Syndra at this moment, because anybody who gets caught with any ability is just going to die. Yay. Surely, no.
Good job, Damlos. You did it.
Well done, Damlos. You stopped Shirley in her tracks. Well played.
You know, good advantage, though, gained by Winthrop, though. They take that second tier tower. Now you've got a ton of pressure on top lane with this Aatrox, who's been pushing these side lanes pretty heavily. You obviously see the response here from Highlanders is to index towards bot lane. Try to get this tower down potentially here for Asian Knight, but continuing to get maybe Ghost as much farm in the mid lane as possible.
That's the important thing at this point. Like, obviously, in the majority of games, you typically have a top laner who still wants to pull some farm off the map, right? And so it becomes a process of splitting resources properly. When you can't deploy into 3 lanes, you have to deploy into 2, and somebody is going to be soaking that loss. But in this one, you don't care if Lulu's soaking that loss. At this point, once the second item is completed, all you need to do is get onto that, and then Ghost can take every single piece of farm on the map that is not Victor's, because that's all that you need to actually outwin in team fights. It's going to be difficult to try to win, but as long as Kog'Maw stands, there's still a chance potentially for the team to come through. Maybe Ghost almost clutched in the Gulag. Remember, in that game 1, around that Nexus, it was really close to being just a solo pentakill for the likes of the Jinx, but wasn't quite able to do it before their minions took care of the base. And hopefully that is a process that can be replicated here for maybe Ghost on this Kog'Maw, where some of those kills can come through.
Maybe Ghost is going to have to flap those beautiful wings to try and fly high above his competition. I want to say, they missed out not making like an ultimate skin for that skin that makes it like start from a cocoon and you just turn into a butterfly.
It came out in like 2013 or something.
It's fine, okay? But in all actuality, Ghost has to perform so well to pull out this game. He is the mainstay here, the main damage source for Highlanders. You've got Asian Knight, who's going to be really good at laying down some sporadic damage, some spacing at least in the fights, but you've got to be careful where maybe Ghost is, and you've got to be able to peel for him. As we see the 3rd dragon goes down, that's sole point for Winthrop, and that means that they have all the pressure in the world everywhere on the map.
Yep. Can we just, even for just a moment, just talk about how little fighting has come through from Highlanders in both of the first 2 games?
Seriously.
Even at like 4,000 gold deficits, 5,000 gold deficits, they've still been willing to compete around some of the neutral objectives. But Winthrop has done such an amazing job starting this game off on such a good foot and getting this massive gold advantage, playing the map perfectly as a group, not allowing anything from the side of the Highlanders to come through, that all of a sudden Highlanders they're a bit chicken to try to take anything, which is completely fair, as any fight is almost certainly going to be lost. They're going to look for a little bit of a play on hybrids. It's not super committal though. Oh, never mind.
They're going all the way on
it.
hybrids. They don't care what you said, and their team is just getting wiped here. Frost Forest pops the paranoid, tries to go in. Dox is going to go unstoppable.
I don't know what
Asian Knight's just dead to the Syndra. Double kill to Doxa. Ghost has to pop the flash and the cleanse at the same time to get away from the damage here. And that is another big win for Winthrop in the fight, a fight that the Highlanders opted into.
I don't know what that was from the Highlanders. That was one of the weakest attempts at a 5-on-5 I've ever seen. I know they don't have the most incredible form of like engage to start with, but Domlos, I don't know what that was, because he just tries to throw some axes at hybrids, and like the entire team was there. You knew the team was there. This is not the battle to pick in the slightest. I guess the best thing you could say is the wave got cleared, and so there was no way to push into the base and take the inhibitor tower, where if you don't take that fight, maybe there is nothing to do, but it feels like that's reaching for straws that just simply do not exist. Highlanders completely overreached on that fight. We're not capable of making anything come about from it, and because of that, they're going to get punished even harder. Tower goes down. Look at this. Like, what is Domlos thinking right here? I know you have the Lulu empowerment, but like, I mean, like, there's still 3-4 members here from the side of the opposition. Like, you're not beating Winthrop in this situation at this gold deficit.
Yeah, maybe it's just at a point you're already there, so why not go for it? But yeah, it's Saskia over the wall the entire time, just
literally
untouched. And it was a really good positioning from hybrids there to get over the wall. He doesn't even go down. All the tools used on top of him, but he has a couple members free firing over the wall.
And he does. Like, even if they get hybrids there, like, the best shit, like, hybrids doesn't have a massive shutdown. He's not, like, slamming this game home or anything like that. He's not that valuable of a champion to pull, especially when you've got Syndra and Jinx. Heck, even if it's just 2-3 members there, if they're going on a hybrids like that and Doxa gets the free hit, Doxa just carries that fight almost entirely from top to bottom without anything else. So, I have no clue.
Oh, Saskia's killed.
Okay.
Asian Knight. Saskio's in some trouble, though. Gets headbutt pulverized. Is going to go down to the duo there. But you have Doxa rounding up the way. Just obliterates Gohan. And now they're on to the main last members here. Scatter the Weak comes out. Doxa is doing so much damage right now. That is huge. That's a quadra kill for Doxa. And Winthrop have silenced the haters in this one. They have stopped any thoughts that the comeback could be there for Highlanders, as they've gotten a 13K gold lead at just this moment.
This started off with what looked like an attempted pick. Sir Kenji was able to find a nice ultimate, and they find it immediately. The whole team was just not around Kog'Maw, and so Kog'Maw wasn't able to live. Actually did get a pick on a Frost Force, but Hybrids was on top of him. Actually, that was pretty close. Oh, but it was Doxa from the top.
Yeah,
that was able to snag that one away.
Yep.
Okay, so I think this was actually an unofficial pentakill from Doxa, because he got that first kill. There's his second. Oh, no, it was a kill on the bottom side right there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was pretty close. The Quadra ends up coming through because just Doxa's obscenely fed. I will say that E right there was a thing of beauty, and so I've added him to the list of people who are allowed to play Syndra. It's a very short list.
He's gotten on the
been
list.
added.
Right, cool.
He gets that, yeah, 100%. Doxa, I'm very impressed by that specific skill shot and how you played the game. So you're added to the list of people allowed to play Syndra. Emery marked that one down because you're allowed to draft it now. You've given the revenue. But this has just been an obscene game, and this is what we've been waiting for, right? Doxa, he's this. It's Doxa diff. That's who this guy is. Right? He's been like the heart and soul of a lot of this team, and a lot of the credit that have gone over. He's been picked up by TSM Academy, or Amateur, I think is actually what he got picked up to. Being now the representative for the TSM at the amateur level and being able to represent them potentially improving grounds. And you see the reason why he's so talented. And that's what he brings to the table.
They're trying to get him. They don't get him. There's the return. They immediately commit all the members there. And Paranoia is just waiting on the side to go into the back line for Frost Force. He goes in, has to back out, dies on the back side of it. Asian Knight getting very, very low. Look at Hybrids, though. He wants to go for Gohan, wants to try to follow it up, but Winthrop decide better of it. They know there's a dragon in 20 seconds. It's soul for them, and they will stop their aggression just for a moment.
And if you thought damage was already there from like Doxa and Saskia and stuff, I can't even imagine what it's going to look like with triple Infernal Drake. That's like 12.5 or 12%, something like that, increase to AP and AD. But also the Infernal Soul procs that are going to be added onto that. I think 1 Q is going to be enough to knock down the majority of members, especially like Lulu. Lulu's probably sitting on like 1,400 health. 1 Q is going to be enough immediately to eviscerate that health bar coming out. It's one last attempt. That was one ultimate with 4 balls that nearly killed Ghost. Doxa might go down here.
Doxa!
Yep.
All right, they give the kill over to maybe Ghost. That's also a Doxa diff, if you didn't know. But the fact of the matter is that they are able to get a lot of gold back, and that will go on a maybe ghost. So we'll see if that can do anything. They are pulling the trigger on this Baron, though. They already started up. They've got a ton of damage, ton of sustained damage already on it. About a quarter health off, but they've got to be careful as Sir Kenji has found the catch out. Mega Death Rocket comes in. Hybrids gets the kill. Now the fight has split. Saskio's caught, but they can't find anybody else. The paranoia is beautiful. Look at the split. They are being picked apart by Winthrop, and it's not even close. The team is gone. The Highlanders cry dies as they do, and Winthrop have to be able to take this game. They're moving up the base. They have a huge gold lead, and they have completely stomped this game number 3.
And didn't even require Dox at that time. This team is so far ahead in every single lane. We've been hyping him the majority of the time, but even in that situation, you saw it's only 4 members, and that's all that was necessary. They find a necessary pick to begin with, and that all of a sudden forces Highlanders to make some sort of aggressive move. They try to go for the team fight. Like you said, they get picked apart individually in ridiculous fashion in Winthrop after a lot of kind of very rough couple of games in those first 2, very close in both senses, is able to take a commanding victory over Highlanders and continue on into the round of 8, playing up against Buffalo next round.
They've got to be feeling good after that game. A little confidence booster going into that round of 8. Incredible stuff from Winthrop. To come back with a composition that, most pieces are very similar to what you saw in game number 2 where they lost, and being able to turn it around completely. The entirety of the early game, the objective control, everything like that, the team play, that was the Winthrop that we've been waiting for. That's the one we built up. That was the team synergy that we had always been looking for.
I loved it because it was not just them getting some gold advantage to start with and then kind of playing lax around the map or being like, we'll take objectives, we'll do this and this and this. It was finally them saying, the team's intention is to try to fight us 5-on-5, so let's cut them off at the knees and say, you're not allowed to fight us 5-on-5 ever. They find picks at the right time, they unlock their map at the right time, they move members around at the right time to counteract any sort of early semblance of aggression that came through. That was far more indicative of a slightly lower paced version of a round of 32 game, where just slowly the map just continues to creep into their fashion, and they're just dominating across the map, doing ridiculous amounts of damage, and that's what we were expecting from this team. So big props to Highlanders, who came in with the confidence of knowing that they can beat anybody, and they just about did it. If game 1 went a little bit different here or there, maybe we would have been talking about Highlanders taking a 2-0 against Winthrop, but instead we see Winthrop able to take the series in whole. This team gets to continue on into the rest of the tournament, takes on Buffalo next round, and potentially gets to continue on into that high level of expectation, but still nothing to scoff at Highlanders. The performance here today was immaculate.
That's one thing I want to give one last shout out. You've done future Highlanders proud. I know this was a very, the team's going to shake up after this season and whatnot. This is the first time they've made it to the CLO playoffs. What a great showing from you guys. And I really hope to see this program succeed in the future. But we got to turn to our winners. We got to talk about Winthrop, and we've got Saskio waiting for an interview.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to be the first to welcome Saskio to the desk. Saskio, congrats on the 2-1. I know it's not quite the style that you wanted to get the win in, and I kind of wanted to ask you, how did it feel going up against the Highlanders and what they brought to you today?
Oop, we can't hear you if you're talking.
You unmuted on VMix? Aha, there we go. Oh, okay. All right, we're going to work on getting Saskio real quick for the mic. I think he's calling over his buddy. We could be play-by-playing and coloring this. Oh, look at this.
You got to get the technical support. Oh, Frost Forest.
Look at this teamwork. Yeah.
This is some jungle AD synergy.
I think I just heard something in the background there. Look at this teamwork coming in here. They get the 2-1. Now they're on the comps together. This is good stuff coming in from Winthrop. As we might be going to the desk here pretty soon to catch up with Saskio. Yeah, we're going to go to the desk real quick as we get everything figured out to get Saskio in real quick. But guys, we have quite the series to break down and quite the game 3 as bit of a stomp from Winthrop to wrap things up, getting things back on pace. We're going to talk to Saskio about that real quick, but while we have Mega Blaziken back on the desk, how did it feel for you, kind of watching with us on the desk for Winthrop to really come roaring back in that game 3?
Yeah, that was a really good win for Winthrop. Came back, kind of did a lot of things that I was hoping that they would. gave Doxa a very strong comfort pick for him, played around him, got Doxa really ahead. He just went crazy this game, got the fully stacks Medjais, did a ton of damage. It's really what I wanted to see them playing through the lane, but beyond that, they also went and played the fights better as well. So I think that Winthrop played this game a lot better, and was really thrilled with how they decided to put their competition together for this game.
Okay, I'm going to put this on hold real quick, as I do have word that we have Saskio back. Frost Force must have been able to get in there and help the poor guy out, as... Yeah, we got Saskio coming right on back, as... I feel like, you know, we've got the good old C-Lol, two-time champ sitting with us. We're about to talk to, as I'm getting word that he just took a quick break. He might have to do some stretches after trying to carry his team across the finish line
Long
there for
series.
that game 3. And the long series. Can't blame the guys there. While we don't have him, while he is just stepping away, actually, or I'm getting word. Okay, he's back.
He's
Playing
back.
ping pong. Saskio, do I have you?
Can you guys hear me? Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
All right, we've got him. Saskio.
Okay.
Great to
Oh,
have you
shoot.
back in.
Okay.
Hey, I love the teamwork there. You and Frost Force, man, inside and out of the game. Pretty good stuff.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, getting your reaction on that first game. I know I was asking you about actually the Highlanders coming in, as I think a lot of people had you guys as a 2-0. The Highlanders ended up giving you a pretty good run for your money. And how do you guys feel coming out of that best of 3?
Yeah. So I think there was a lot of nerves going into the game. Some of our players were a little shaken, and before the game, there was a lot of nerves. Like, it's their first time playing on CLOL stage, so I think they weren't performing at their best. But overall, we just got together, played our game, and we ended up winning the game.
Yeah, nice. We had the opportunity to talk to Chan last week on the desk, Frost Forest, and one thing that he said was that with this being your last season with Winthrop, with this being, you know, Doxa's potentially last season with him going with TSM, you know, how does it feel as a team knowing that everybody is going to be playing their hearts out to try and win C-Lol for you in your last year?
Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of stakes going into CLOL, as this is clearly my last year. I just graduated my MBA. Doxa will be going off. Hybrids is probably going to be going off. So a lot of us really want to hunker down and try really hard to get our CLOL victory before we all go our separate ways.
Yeah, I know that, you know, not only for you guys, you got Frost Force make an appearance in the background. I love that you guys are having a lot of fun after that win, but also you talked about the kind of the lack of experience for some of your teammates, but you are the person, I mean, your resume when it comes to collegiate, you are a 2-time champion. I think you're the only player who has won all of CLOL playing 2 different roles as well. And this being last year, how do you feel like your legacy in collegiate is, and what does that look like as you get one last run at the cup?
Yeah, I think it'll mean a lot to me to be able to play in this last CLOL and potentially even win. I think I definitely really want to try really hard and just go out with the bang.
You know, you guys have your date with Buffalo next week, you know, in the top 8. They're a team that was invited rather than qualified, and they've, you know, really done well so far. Surprisingly, they pulled off a couple of upset wins. You know, going into the top 8 against them, how do you feel like Winthrop is going to do? Do you guys think that you can emulate some of your Proving Ground success? What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, I think our team's going to do a lot better since we have now 3 more weeks of practice before the top 8. So we'll get in a lot of practice. I'd like to give a huge shout out to our coach, Hermit, former United and Origin coach. He's been a huge part to our success, and he's really been helping the team get together and just play the game properly.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you guys. And actually, Saskio, you know, speaking of dates, we got something fun that we got to throw up on the broadcast to give you a little bit of a hard time, is a little bit more familiar with you. Kind of curious what you think about, Dylan had an offer for you on Twitter. We're kind of thinking, not really sure if you're in or not. I'm kind of curious, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm down. I am currently looking for a girlfriend. My mom is pressuring me a lot. She says I'm 24 now. I just graduated. I should be on the hunt for a girlfriend. So, ladies, I'm going back to Vancouver. So, hit me up. DMs are open.
The guy's, he's got a master's degree. His mom's supporting him on Mother's Day weekend. What else can you say, Saskio?
Yeah.
As thanks so much for joining us. Congrats on the win, and thanks for playing along with us as well. Best of luck at top 8. We're looking forward to seeing you and what your squad can pull off there. As congrats on making it, and really excited to see if you guys are able to get that cup one last time.
For sure. Thank you very much.
Oh man, I usually when we put players on the spot, you never really know how they're gonna react. I don't
Yeah.
think I could have asked for anything better out of Saskia there.
That was a lot of fun. I'm glad he
man.
enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's always fun getting to see some of the guys that we got to communicate with a lot for Proving Grounds, and also someone like Saskia who has been around CLOL and having so much success throughout his entire career as well. So he's trying to give it one last ride at the Cup. League of Legends College Championships presented to you by State Farm. But before we wrap things up here, we do have to wrap the bow on that game. We were trying to get into some of the ways that Winthrop were able to take the dominant win, and the Eagles were able to fly high in that Game 3. And I do want to queue up the first replay and actually bring Mega Blaziken back into the fold here as well. I know right off the bat, it was a bit, you were talking a lot about the draft and the R5 Alistar and the fact that that put Lulu top. And I think we're going to see maybe some of the weaknesses exposed here in that first replay with that TP coming in from the top side.
Yeah, we saw it created just a lot of oddities for this draft for Highlanders. It really made it harder for them to do what's been successful for them throughout the series. So we saw that this early fight, the TPs coming in, and just the Lulu in this early game, she has such a weaker effect on these early fights than what Go on Top has been playing in these previous series. So just the Lulu just not able to match the TPs, not able to match the presence of the Aatrox in these fights. So we saw the TPs come in from Lulu first and then from Aatrox afterwards, but it just has to walk in and just can't do what Gohan wants to do with his teleport flanks that he worked out so well in the first 2 games. And he just isn't able to do it on the Lulu pick, so this really just ends up biting him super hard. That he just goes in for the flank, but he's flanking as Lulu, and it just doesn't get anything done, and just ends up costing the Highlanders a lot in the first play.
Yeah, the Highlanders ended up falling behind right off the bat, and unlike the past games where they had the playmaking tools and Gohan was able to really try and turn things back in their favor, it felt like they weren't able to do that as well in this one. As I know, diving into the next replay, Dylan, we have a bit of a different look once again for the Highlanders as they fall themselves, falling behind. And in past games, we've seen them using TPs to try and answer plays for Winthrop, but this time around, Winthrop, they put their foot on the gas and did not look back.
Yeah, it feels like what Jordan just said. You get Gohan on a champion like Lulu, it just doesn't have the map impact or the skirmish impact that something like a Set or a Volibear does. They were able to play around his pressure so well, and it really felt like Winthrop kind of going back to their roots. They're going to get Sir Kenji on that tanky engage support. Thresh sure is, a relatively tanky support, but it's not like the Nautilus. It's not like the Leona. Those are champions that can get fights started on their own. And it always feels good putting Sir Kenji on something that can just enable his teammates. He can just run the map on these champions that can force plays. And we saw it time and time again. He was forcing these engages onto the immobile members of, the Highlanders. And honestly, Sir Kenji may be my MVP vote for the whole series.
Wow, high praise coming in for the X100 Thieves Academy support. Had a quick stint on there, now finds himself on Winthrop, and a support that was pretty good at roaming and proving grounds. Great to see that as well in the Collegiate Championships too, as he definitely left a positive impression on Dylan for sure. But I know that we have one more fight. Actually, want to throw this one to Jordan. This is the bot inner fight. By now, the Camel's back was broken. It was really just Winthrop running the rest of the series. As the Highlanders, they picked that scaling comp. They weren't able to ever get it off the ground. And Mega Blaziken, I'm just kind of curious about what are your overall thoughts here on what we saw from Winthrop today and what the team that's going to play up against them in the top 8 has to worry about as well?
Yeah, I think what Winthrop really showed today, what this fight shows as well, is that they're just really good at getting the early advantages, and then what they showed in this game in particular was how they can snowball them. Sir Kenji really is the catalyst for this team from turning the laning power of Sasuke and Doxa into these bigger wins. So I think that what we saw this game was just exactly what we said at Winthrop. Really strong lanes, Sir Kenji playing an engaged support that he can roam, he can make plays, he can accelerate their CS differences into tower differences to kills, all those types of things. And we saw this Highlander trying to do what they've been doing in previous games, but they were further behind, didn't have as good tools, and Winthrop was just able to punish them for the types of fights that had worked so great for them in the first 2 games, but just in this last one, with the not as good champions for Highlander, plus just Doxa going way off in this game, just getting super far ahead. I just really thought that this was a great example of how Winthrop can look to be playing, and I think it'll do them a lot of good in their top 8 matchup as well.
Yeah, and speaking of that top 8 matchup, Dylan, I kind of teased it on the broadcast, but we're rather familiar with Buffalo as they came out of our conference, the ESCA, were one of the invite teams and actually find themselves sitting in the top 8. And you know, having a little bit more intimate knowledge with that team, do you think Winthrop matches up well against them? What do they have to expect going up against that team?
It feels like Winthrop matches up pretty well against Buffalo. I'd say maybe the only area where Buffalo has an advantage is in the top lane. You know, Buffalo's top laner is one of the strongest collegiate top laners that there is in terms of just raw carry potential and like individual skill. So maybe you can exploit that against hybrids. But in terms of, I think there's a massive difference in the jungle. An absolute like Grand Canyon in the mid lane. I do not think that matchup is very close whatsoever. I do think that Winthrop will be able to take that series relatively handily. It's going to be interesting, though, as Saskia pointed out, increased prep time. You never know what kind of strategies these teams are going to, you know, conjure together to try and cheese their opponents to, you know, get the edge and draft, things like that. So it's going to be a fun series to watch, but I definitely don't have Buffalo winning it.
All right, we're going to have to see if that comes to fruition, as that wraps it up for us today. Before we shut down the stream, we do have to recap all the action that happened across both of the streams, as you might be like, who is SUNY Buffalo? Yeah, they were on twitch.tv/Upsurge Esports. So if you want to catch those VODs, you can catch them over there. You can also catch them at the LoL Esports Highlights and Events channel as well. But looking at the results, we do have the first top 8 matchup already set. Winthrop against the University of Buffalo, like we were just talking about here. And also congrats to Illinois State, as they had a pretty quick 2-0 over Michigan State. They find themselves a spot in the top 8 as well. I know their esports program has really grown and come into its own in this year. And we also saw the University of Toronto Esports, our first series of the day, take the 2-1 up against Purdue, a result that might surprise a few people, but Toronto definitely proved that they have earned that spot in the top 8 and are going to look to see if their Canadian brethren in the University of Western Ontario can meet them there, or if it's going to be Bethany Esports, the school that are very confident and very cocky about the fact that they have the most fun out of any school participating in the tournament. They try and also prove that they one of the best teams in the tournament moving to the top 8. We'll see all those matchups tomorrow. We have to go over the full schedule as well. Ladies and gentlemen, the action does not stop. It might be a couple week break before top 8, but we have the rest of the round of 16 action coming at you tomorrow with the full schedule. Same time and place. Going to be kicking things off at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time, as have some exciting matchups once we get those up on our screen. I know personally, I think the highlight for me on the day, the University of Ontario against Bethany, might be the highlight match for me. Mega Boys, I'm kind of curious if you have any that you're looking out for as well.
Yeah, I think that one is going to be a lot of fun. Besides that, I think ASU and Columbia College should be an interesting one. Both of those teams have shown a lot of strengths, but also inconsistencies throughout the season. So I think it'll be really interesting to see which ASU and which Columbia College shows up on the day in that matchup. So I think that one could be one that could definitely flip either way, depending on which ASU and which Columbia College we see. So that's one that I'm definitely looking forward to.
Yeah, and ASU, of course, being helped out by COG Academy coach as well, Miko, too, helping buff them up throughout this collegiate run as well. Going to have to see if they can find themselves in the top 8 as well. But, guys, it's been a long day. We had a full 6 games today, making up for, it feels like a little bit long. We had 6 games last week, but, that was 3 series. We got the max runtime today. I just want to go through closing thoughts. Dylan, going to start with you. Anything else you have to say to wrap up the day?
I love Collegiate League of Legends. It's a lot of fun to be a part of. It's a lot of fun to watch these teams and programs play. And even though we sent home 2 schools today, unfortunately, every player on these teams played their heart out. They weren't really expected to win, at least in the second series, but these Highlanders, I mean, they are going to be a force to reckon with. Who knows if the team's going to stay fully together, but if they do, I think they can do some serious damage next year.
Yeah, and also Mega Blaziken, our special guest. Any closing shout-outs or anything that you'd like to say before we head off on the stream?
Sure. Shout out to you all for having me on. This has been a great time. Shout out to my family and friends who've been watching and supporting me through this. And it's just been a lot of fun. I really love watching series like this. Club teams like the Highlanders coming and just giving it all, laying it all on the table, and just really putting on a great show for the rest of us here at home.
Yeah, fantastic to watch. Speaking of that great show, it's not just us, Rebel Fox and Mazel. We got a great crew behind the scenes as well. Harry is on replay ops, Max Asian as well, OBS, Nick on graphics, Tone, our lead producer, Emery, content and admin, and also Garrett holding everything up here, as well as Teasa. So many more people that I'm missing that have helped out, but thank you so much for helping make this show possible. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern. As until then, we're just going to have to see if anything else exciting happens tomorrow. We had a full slate of games. Went all 6 on this stream. I hope we get the same action tomorrow. We're just going to have to find out. 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. We'll see you then. Until then, that's Cubby. That's going to be it for me.